The building behind me, Salvation Army building, this is where my last restaurant was. On 5th of December 71, we had just finished serving lunch to our customers, and I and my staff were having lunch. A policeman walked in and he said, look, there's a bomb next door, you better come out. We said, oh, okay, let's finish our lunch. So after about 5 minutes, he came back again. He said, really, there's a bomb next door, come out. So he came out, stood on the side of the street, and then I realized that my car was still in front of the building. So I ran back to drive my car away from there, and we stood here and saw the bomb going off. It was probably the biggest fire in Belfast at that time. It burnt my restaurant and all the neighboring buildings. It was a very heartbreaking experience to see last bit of your business in Belfast destroyed and not knowing what way to go now. This is typical of Belfast Peace Line, these fences and gates dividing the connecting streets of Catholic areas like Falls Road and Shankill Road. And it's typical that I suffered because of partition of India, the Muslim and the Hindus hating each other there, and which caused partition of India, and coming to Northern Ireland and living in a divided society again. These are Sinn Féin offices here, and people from Sinn Féin, they are councillors. They use our restaurant and conference facility in the hotels like any other customers. I know some of them quite well.
Because of the terrorism and the trouble, people haven't wanted to come here. Now, Diljit went into business, particularly in the hotel trade, a very difficult trade, in order to build up the economy of Northern Ireland and to try to make it possible for business people and for tourists to come here. It wasn't an easy job to take up, but he, along with a small number of other business people in the hotel trade, have made a tremendous contribution, and I think it's only now that we've got peace that we can all begin to benefit from his foresight and his approach to business in Northern Ireland. I think the other thing too about Diljit is because he comes from what is a racial minority in Northern Ireland terms, he understands the question of minorities. And so I've always found him very supportive of my political work, which is about being fair to all minorities, Protestants, Catholics, people from racial minorities and so on. He's always been very, very supportive of that, and I think because he understands the problems and wants to participate in building a fair society for everybody.
Patrick Mayhew was a good friend. He stayed in Northern Ireland as Secretary of State for many years. I was the president of Belfast Chamber of Trade when he took up his position here. So from the first day that he came, we got to know each other. A very nice man. He worked very hard for Northern Ireland, and I think he appreciated my efforts, what I was trying to do. So we developed a great friendship with his wife and his sons, and my sons. They became great friends. So he's a very good friend. Even now we communicate with each other, send the sort of greetings at Christmas to each other. Well, see, after the Anglo-Irish Accord was signed between the Irish government and the British government during Mrs. Thatcher's premiership, and Anglo-Irish Accord was signed without much consultation with the unionist politicians. So they felt very threatened and aggrieved at that. So the unionist parties in Northern Ireland had a boycott with the British ministers. And it was quite difficult for British ministers because they weren't liked by the nationalist community, and now they were in no speaking terms with the loyalist community as well. So I did various things. At one time I hosted a meeting between some of the senior civil servants and Westminster local MPs. And the meeting happened here in my house. And that was talks, starting at a level, civil service level, to break the jam log, to break the ice. But the most interesting was inviting the then Secretary of State, Tom King, and the Lord Mayor of Belfast. So I hosted a dinner at home, and they both accepted my invitation.
I remember the evening very well because it was quite an experience. We had a scenario where people who were really not talking to each other for political reasons, arriving at a dinner in Diljit Rana's house simply because he had asked them. Neither side would be offensive to him, so they both came. I strongly suspect they wanted to come anyway, but however, they did arrive, and it was a most interesting evening.
What does that say about the respect that Mr. Rana has in this community?
The respect he has in the community is very high. He's a man who is, as quite obvious, he's a self-made man, but more than that, he has also been a benefactor in the community. And people will spend a lot of time and a lot of respect in dealing with him. He has certainly a very high regard in most parts of the community. In fact, I can't think of any part of the community where he wouldn't have that high regard.
You've been feted by the media, but also by royalty. You received the MBE. Now, how did that feel?
Well, I was very flattered to receive the honor that I did. I never expected that. But it's nice to have recognition of your work that I did in Belfast.
What did the Queen say to you? She chatted to you for quite a long time.
Yeah, she was very kind to me. I was fortunate that she presented the award to me. And she asked me, and I spent a few minutes or seconds talking to her, telling what I do in Northern Ireland. So she asked me the question, you know, what do you do? And I said, ma'am, I've been sort of building what other people have been demolishing. And I own hotels and some property development in Belfast, and that I've been living there for the last 30 years. I think when you're working hard, whether you are an actor, whether you are a journalist, whether you are a sports person, you work hard with total dedication because you want to do it. But when you get the applause, that is the real prize. And that's what it feels like. When you work hard and you get recognition, that money can't buy.
Could you ever have imagined, when in the Foundry, that you would one day shake the hand of the monarch?
No. It was difficult for me to imagine at that time. When the British government or the establishment refused to give me a decent job, then to expect that 30 years later I'll receive the award, it was totally unthinkable. Right, that's the sort of reception foyer of Shaw's Bridge, and that's the overall plan. What's this? Is that the center feature? No, Diljit Rana won't retire. I'll just change direction. I'm not the one for just doing gardening or playing golf. I think I have objectives now, more charitable causes, to work in India and help people there, help them with education, medical. So I have a project there in district Hoshiarpur, where progressively, as I delegate my affairs of my company to other people over the next 2 years, that I'll be spending more and more time doing charitable work rather than just sitting idle at home.